to whoever is out there. So on my side, I see there's only one person here, and I know there's a little bit of a delay, so I'm sure that there are more that will pop in soon. But when you get on here, leave me a comment so I know that we've got some people here and we can get started. So as you guys saw in the thumbnail, if you couldn't tell what that picture was, I had all the parts of the bale unroller. I've got it all disassembled right now, and I'm getting everything primed, and everything is primed as we speak. And my hope is that when I get done with the live stream here, that I can go back home and paint that thing and finally be like completely done with it. It's kind of felt like it's been finished, but it's really not been, because it's not painted and it's just sitting in my shop taking up a ton of room. And yeah, we're gonna put a stop to that, or put an end to that, I should say. And also, I was thinking that, you know, while I'm feeding hay over at the winter pasture, this would actually be an awesome time to test out the bale unroller. So once I get that thing all painted up and completely finished, then the plan is to take a bale down to the winter pasture and unroll it and see how everything works. All right, I see people popping in here now. I have to tell you guys, it's a very it's a very nerve-wracking feeling when I'm sitting here looking at the screen and it tells me how many people are waiting to get on the live stream. And when it's like 0 or 1 person, you just have this thought like, man, nobody's gonna show up to this thing. But anyway, even if there was only one of you, I would still do it, because if one person showed up, then, you know, then that's what happened. So I see a lot of people commenting about my hair, because it's I don't think it's ever been this long before, honestly. And I'll tell you guys the truth, I want to cut it, but every time I say that I'm going to cut it, my wife and my daughter both start, I won't say throwing a fit, but they want me to keep it long for whatever reason. And I just always go back to, well, they look at it more than I do, so I guess if they like it, then, you know, I mean, at some point it's gonna have to be cut, let's be honest. But yeah, so if you're wondering why my hair is so long and why I'm not cutting it, that's why. It's to keep the women happy, you know. That's why we do a lot of things, right? All right, let's see a bunch of you guys popping in here now. Yeah, Theo Vaughn. I haven't heard that one before, but I guess I can kind of see it. It's more, I think, the haircut than anything else, but so I'll go ahead and just answer the question that I know I'm going to get asked several times throughout this live stream, because people always want to know, when am I going to finish that tractor? And for those of you that maybe don't know, maybe you're new to the channel, you haven't been here long enough to kind of see what has happened with that whole story. Well, several years ago now, my grandpa's old Jubilee, or at least what I thought was a Jubilee. Turns out it's several different models cobbled together to make a functional tractor, which is fine with me. But it quit running a couple years ago, and I thought that while I was working on it, that would be a good time to just tear it down and do a full rebuild on it. And I guess full rebuild is maybe not totally correct, but, you know, engine rebuild with a paint job. And that was the plan for that tractor. So I got it in the shop, got it all torn apart, and we kind of got stalled out on it there. And the main reason is just that the engine parts that I needed were back ordered, and that kind of took the wind out of my sails, I guess. But I do need to finish that. Every time I talk about it, I say I need to finish it, and it is true. It does me no good the way that it's sitting now, and in fact, it does me less than that even, because not only is it of no use to me, but it takes up a bunch of room in the shop that I would like to have back. So I've thought about, I mean, once I get the parts coming, or once I get them here, maybe doing a lot of that off camera, just because so much of what that tractor needs is just me with a wire wheel, getting all the paint off of it. And I might just get it to a point of, you know, getting the whole frame and engine block and everything primered and maybe painted. I'm not really sure what order I ought to do that in, but like kind of once we get back to like the reassembly phase and then start filming there, just because a lot of the stuff is really tedious, and you know, that's kind of where we're at with that. So I've certainly not given up on it. It's definitely on the to-do list, but you know, it's one of those things that it's not a piece of equipment that I desperately need to use. So sometimes it's hard to make time to work on it, because it's really more of like a hobby project, I guess you could say, because when it's all done, it's not going to really change the way that I do things, except that I will probably take the loader. I don't know if you guys can see, the 8N is right there behind me, but I probably will take the loader. Whoops, get you straightened out here. Probably take the loader off of that tractor and put it on the Jubilee when it's all done. So that's just kind of where we're at with that. So the hay crop, I see that popping up a couple times. I was out there yesterday looking around a little bit, and it looks good. I don't see where any of the vetch has sprouted yet, but I almost kind of wouldn't expect to see anything yet. I think probably in the next week or so, I might be able to go out there and find some little vetch sprouts coming up. But everything looks pretty good, actually. The bad thing is that I don't know, when I look over the field, how much of what I'm seeing is wild oats and how much of it is triticale or the forage mix that I planted. That's the problem. Wild oats basically look identical to red oats and what's in that mix, or triticale. They're all grasses. So it's kind of hard to tell. And I know I've talked about a lot in the past how I plant triticale on that one half of the field so that I can spray some different herbicides that'll knock the wild oats out. And I didn't do that this year. I just sprayed regular old 2,4-D. And the reason is that stuff that you spray that will kill the wild oats, but not the triticale, it's the timing of that application is really it's really important, because if you put it on at the wrong time, you can damage the crop that you planted. Obviously, we don't want to do that. And basically, the window that you need to find is where that triticale has sprouted enough to have like a fairly decent root system, and then where you're going to have a string of days where it never gets below freezing. And I know that, you know, I mean, like right now, I'm just in a sweatshirt. Honestly, could probably be in a t-shirt if I was in the sun. But we still do get frosts in the morning, and it's only like, you know, high 20s or low 30s, but that is enough to put a frost on the crop and make it to where you don't want to spray that other herbicide. So in the past, when this has happened, I kind of would get into a rut, I guess, where you're waiting for that weather window to hit, and then it just never comes. So basically, you don't spray your field, and then you get a ton of weeds out there, broadleaf, that you could have knocked out with 2,4-D. So this year, I decided, well, if I couldn't get a good window to spray Simplicity, that I would just spray 2,4-D and at least get rid of the broadleaf, and that's what I ended up doing. So that's the story with that. But it looks good. And I'm hoping that this year I can cut it earlier. That was probably my big problem last year, is that I cut it too late. I mean, there was a couple things that didn't end up working out really great last year. So, but cutting it too late is bad, because while I avoided storms and it didn't get rained on, which was good. Um, when the crop gets more mature, the how shall I explain this? Like the nutritive value goes more into the seed head, like on the oats or the wheat or the barley or the triticale or what have you. And that's less digestible as opposed to if you cut it early, then you get the hay itself, like the grass. I don't know, I'm not explaining this very well, but basically the protein is more available to the cattle, which makes for a more nutritious hay crop. So that's the goal moving forward. You know, it's rare that things ever kind of fall together and work out perfectly. And usually I'm just happy if I don't get rained on with the hay crop that is. And the last couple of years we've been lucky with that, but that hasn't always been the case. So now I've got those hay rakes, so if I do get it rained on, then, you know, I'll at least get to test those out. But that's not really the way that I want to use them for the first time either. So let's see. I want to try to get these questions a little bit better. Let's see. Are the winter pasture cows staying in so far? Well, you know, I hate to brag about something like that, but yes, so far things have been all right. The feed's been pretty good over there, and I've been bringing them hay on top of that. So I think when we get breakouts, it's usually because they're pushing on the fence because I'm trying to kind of push them to eat the grass a little bit more than they would like, and they would rather reach over the fence and get the stuff on the other side. What ends up happening is they break a wire and get through, and one gets through, and then pretty soon they all figure out how to get through, and you know, then you have problems. Or as what happened last year, somebody leaves the gate open and then they all get out, and then when that happens, it's like I don't know what you do to prevent that, you know. Feed's getting short, I can bring them hay. If the fences are weak, I can put up hot wire, and I do all those things. But if people leave the gates open, there's just not really anything I can do about that. I've got signs on the gate saying to keep them closed, but you know how it is. If it's not somebody else, you know, if it's not their problem, they may or may not decide to close that gate. So that's just what it is. That's something we got to deal with over there because that levee goes through that pasture, and there's a lot of people that have a right to use that levee. So most people are good, and they realize that it's important to close the gate after they go through. Some people, not so much. So that's, you know, like I say, that's why I got to go over and check on them like every day or every other day, because it's not uncommon for those sorts of things to happen. So how far is the ranch from the winter pasture? It's, what is it? I think it's like 2 miles or 3 miles. It's not very far. I could walk there if I really wanted to. I don't really want to, but you know, it's pretty close. Close enough to ride the side by side or the four wheeler or something like that, where it's not a big deal. So, which is really nice. Don't get me wrong, and especially for this area, there's not a ton of options as far as like pasture that you can lease. So usually if you are going to lease pasture, you're going to have to go a little ways to get to it. So that's one reason that we're really lucky to have that lease over there, is just that it is close. Hayden, somebody just asked me why don't I brand my cows, and I do brand my cows. They're kind of hard to see the brands right now when they have their winter coats, just because the hair is long, but in the summertime you can see them a lot better. If you're wondering why you don't see me doing that on camera, it's one of those things that you just kind of probably are better off not showing. So I don't film that when I do it. But yeah, we do brand, and especially because we go to these places, to these leases that are off-site. You know, I think it's important to have the cattle branded. You know, especially this time of year when the the value is of the cattle is high. Looks like I have a visitor coming over. What did you need? Oh, bikes. Everyone always wants you to see you, so there you are. She's just doing mom things, you know. Yeah, the kids have their bikes over here, and I stuck them in the barn the other day before we got all that rain, just so they didn't get rusty and, you know, that sort of thing. Another thing for Dad to fix, right? She does exist, yes. Let's see. So the Pioneer, I've seen that in the comments a couple times. I don't know if it's from the same person or not, but it's kind of the same story as the old Jubilee. It's on the list of things to fix, but just haven't gotten to it yet. So I kind of, I'm certainly you know, fortunate to have this option, but I do have the Yamaha side by side, and as long as I've got that, I've got wheels, you know. So again, it's kind of hard to get real motivated to tear that thing all apart and spend however much money it's going to cost to fix it. But on the other hand, it does me no good in the shape that it's in now. So the plan is to fix it, but I'm just not really sure when it's going to happen. But right now, it's kind of more of just wasp habitat, and, you know, so it needs to happen. It needs to happen. You know, there's a lot of things that need to happen, and you guys know how it is. And whether you're farming or ranching or not, everything is kind of done based on priority. And right now, I guess the priority is not real high on that. Let's see. Whoops. I pressed the wrong thing here. You know, when it comes to running this live stream, I'm like an old man. I can't hardly see the comments, and I'm pressing the wrong things. No, the Pioneer does not have a hole in the block. I think it broke a piston ring, and because all of a sudden it just started making a weird noise, and it would still run, which, you know, if it had a hole in the block, I don't think would. But yeah, then after a while, it just kind of idled lower and lower and lower until it finally died, and I could, excuse me, I could still turn it over, but it wouldn't fire. So it's not locked up or anything. It just, like I say, it started making a noise, which I feel like could be a broken piston ring. And then, I mean, I probably shouldn't admit it, but I ran it for like 2 or 3 days because I thought the noise that I heard was like a broken exhaust bracket or something. And so I didn't think it was like a big deal. So I kept running it, and then eventually it wouldn't run anymore. So I probably scratched the cylinder wall up and, you know, just kind of ruined the top end of the engine. Hopefully the bottom end is okay still. But yeah, that's it was using oil, which again could speak to, you know, excessive wear on the cylinder wall. But yeah, I suspect it's going to be a fairly easy fix, but, you know, I just don't know for sure until I tear it apart what it's actually going to take. So hole in the piston, yeah, maybe. I've had that happen to dirt bikes before, and actually, yeah, the symptoms were kind of similar. So maybe that's it. Let's see. Haven't started using the bale unroller. Like I talked about in the beginning of the live stream, I'm actually in the process of painting it right now. And that's why I didn't get a video done, because I didn't get as much painting done as I had hoped. So in the next video, hopefully you will see a fully painted bale unroller, although most likely will not be assembled. Maybe, we'll see. But right now everything's primered, and I'm thinking when I get done with the live stream that I can go back home and paint it. I saw somebody asked about my truck. If you guys remember a couple videos ago, it started dinging the warning lights at me and giving me the thing that you don't want to see on a modern diesel, especially, that it was going to limit my my speed in 50 mile, which this is just kind of how these new trucks work. When they detect a problem with the emission system, they'll give you like an amount of miles, whatever it may be, to get that fixed. And if you don't, then it'll limit the speed of the truck or put it into limp mode. I think it starts by cutting you down to 50 miles an hour tops. And then if you still don't get it fixed, it'll take you down to like 25 miles an hour. And I think eventually it will get you down to 5 miles an hour, which I guess would just be enough to like get it onto a tow truck to haul it off to be fixed. So I know a lot of people say I should delete it, but this is we live in a state where you can't really get away with doing that because we have to get the trucks smog tested, and they check and make sure that everything is still there. So not that I would ever condone doing something like that anyway, but I can't do that. So, but what ended up being the problem, supposedly, is the, I guess the DPF, for those of you that aren't fluent in diesel speak, that's the diesel particulate filter. It's a filter in the exhaust pipe that filters the exhaust gases before they are, released out into the world. And if that gets plugged up to a certain degree, apparently it will throw that warning, because when they looked at it, everything in the system was functioning properly, but the DPF was like 65% plugged, which to me, it's like 65, you should be able to still run with that. But I guess the computer disagrees with me. Anyway, all they had to do was, hook a laptop up to it, or a scanner, or whatever tool they need to do this, and force a regen, which again, if you're not fluent in diesel, that basically causes the engine to like run a little bit hotter than normal, and it heats that DPF up to the point where it'll start burning off a lot of that stuff that is plugging it up. And after he did that, it seemed to run all right. I towed up to Orland to take the steer to the USDA processor since doing that, and didn't have any issues, haven't had any issues just running around. And I guess what causes that, which is really frustrating, I guess, is the nice way to say it. But what causes that is a bunch of short trips, or not really getting the truck up to running temperature for an extended period of time, which unfortunately is like mostly how I drive that truck. It's driving here, driving to the winter pasture, even going like the steer pasture and back. If it doesn't start cleaning the exhaust filter at the right time, it wouldn't finish the process. And yeah, so I'm trying to be more mindful about not using the truck for short trips. And if I am going to drive it, to try to drive it, and just do a bunch of trips or errands or whatever I have to do, which is frankly stupid, because, for as much money as you spend on these vehicles, you ought to be able to just drive them and not have to worry about all this stuff. But apparently this is not the case. This is, me screaming into the wind, and it's not going to change no matter how mad I am about it. But I think what I thought about is that, I was thinking, man, what I really need is like a little Tacoma, or a small gas truck that I could use for running around, staying close to home. And then I thought, I have that Dodge sitting there. That's a gas truck, and I already have it. So there's no reason why I shouldn't just get that thing fixed up and use that for my wheels when I'm not going to be getting too far from home. It'd be perfect for coming here, going to the winter pasture, even going to the steer pasture. So that's kind of what I'm thinking will be the solution. And then I won't be putting all those short trips on the newer truck, but I'll still have it when I need to like haul cattle to the sale, or whatever I might need to do. So Gotta tell you, I'm just not used to sitting here and talking this much. Let's see. Okay, so Karen's asking about playing guitar for the cows, and I've seen this pop up several times, and I don't know if every time I've seen it, if it's from Karen or if several people have have put this out there. But I strongly suggest, or not suggest, but I feel that playing guitar for the cows would have no effect on them. I don't think that they would be any more interested in that than they would be if I just went out and sat out there quietly with them. The funny thing about cattle, or at least like this is probably not true with like range cattle or cattle that don't see people that much, but cattle that are mostly familiar and used to having people around, if you go out and sit in the middle of the pasture and just ignore them. I used to do this just for kicks. I'd go out there on the four-wheeler and sit there quietly, and in about 10 minutes, every single cow will just kind of surround you, and they just get curious about what you're doing out there. So I suspect that if you have seen videos of people doing that, that it's, I hate to rain on the parade here, but I think it's not really the music that they're attracted to. I think it's just the presence of somebody sitting out in the pasture that kind of piques their curiosity. But, I sit here and I say that, and the truth is that I've never tried it, so I really don't know for sure. So, that might be something that I try. It might be an interesting short. I don't think we need to make a whole video around doing that, but, I'm sitting here kind of poo-pooing the idea, and the truth is, I don't know. Maybe they would like it. Maybe they would respond to it, and wouldn't that be an interesting video? So maybe we'll try it one of these days if nothing much is going on. But so far that hasn't really been the case for me, it seems. I was thinking the other day, we always say, you know, w- if you listen to farmers and ranchers talk, it's always, well, that's a good winter project. That's a good winter project. Basically implying that in the wintertime, I'm not going to be busy, so I'll be able to do stuff like that. And I have to tell you, I feel like I may be more busy in the wintertime, or at least that's how it has felt this year. Because while in the summer you're running around irrigating and doing all that kind of stuff, in the wintertime you don't have to worry about irrigating, but you do have to worry about feeding every day. And since I started feeding round bales, that is a little bit easier because I can load feeders up and walk away from them for a couple of days, and they just have enough to go on and keep eating. But every once in a while, everything kind of aligns where it's like the steers, the calves, the cows, the winter pasture, everybody needs to be fed on the same day. And when that when that does happen, feeding cows almost takes all day. Um, so, you know, I was actually, LS had invited me to go to the National Farm Machinery Show. That might not be what they call it, but, that's how I think of it. In Louisville, Kentucky, which I think is going on this week or the end of this week. And I really wanted to go, and I thought it would be a really cool event, not only for me to just walk around and see everything, but to also meet a bunch of you guys, because I feel like a lot of you probably go to that show. Um, but I just didn't feel like I could get away for that long, just with everything that's got to be done every day during the wintertime. It's like, yeah, trying to get away for that long is tough. But with all that being said, I didn't feel like I could go this year, but I am thinking that next year I want to try to make that more of a priority. If assuming I'm still working with LS, which I mean, I don't know what the future of all that is going to be. I think that I will still be working with them. But assuming that I am, I'm thinking that next year I'm going to really try to make the Farm Machinery Show. And I think we would have fun. It would be cool just to be at the show, and then yeah, I don't know how many of you guys go to that, or how many of, the thing is, it's like Louisville, Kentucky is very convenient for some people to get to, but not so much for others, like myself. That's I think we looked, at like a 5-hour flight from here, or maybe 6 hours. I'm sure, depends on layovers and weather and all that stuff. Um, but yeah, that's unfortunate that we didn't get to go to that, but hopefully next year. How old is this hay barn? That's a good question. I think let's see. So my grandparents moved here in 57, and I remember my grandma telling me that my grandpa built this barn like after he would get home from work. So, and I think that's maybe one of the first things that he built out here. So this barn, I think I've talked about this before, but I'll talk about it again because, there's new people dropping in all the time. But something people often ask, and I'm seeing it in the screen right now, it's very visible. There's a ton of holes in this tin, and people have asked me, like, are the holes there for ventilation, or what's the purpose of the holes? And the purpose of the holes is there is no purpose. The reason that they're there is because this barn used to be a different building that was like 5 or 6 miles to the west. The I don't know who originally owned it, but they wanted to tear this building down and rebuild it or whatever. So like all of these timbers, all of the tin, I think everything that you see behind me used to be assembled in a different way and was an entirely different building. I don't know if you guys will be able to see it, but if you look at, so I'll try to, I don't know if this is going to work, but like these boards that run across the ceiling there, they have like a long arch in them. They're not, oh, you might actually be able to see it from this angle, but yeah, the boards that are running like long ways across the ceiling there, they have a long arch in them. They're not straight dimensional lumber. And I think what this used to be, or the reason that we have those weird shaped boards up there, is because I think this was like a hoop house type building, that they probably stored rice in or something like that. So this is all reclaimed. That's why there's holes in the tin. That's why you can see like the paint on the board up there. Like there used to be 2x4s up there. So it's kind of a neat history of this building. And as far as how old it is, I would imagine it was built like in the late 50s or early 60s. So let's say it was in the 60s. What would that make it? 65 years old now. So it's getting up there. It probably needs some work. And I know like over on the wing on the side over here that the cattle have access to, you can tell that things are a lot more beat up than they are like over here on this side where for years we just parked equipment. Now I put hay over there. But it's amazing how much harder the cattle are on this side of the building. And I think probably eventually what I'll do is like the posts that are out there, and then maybe even, you have to forgive me, I don't know all the terminology for like construction and building stuff, but I would say like the trusses that go down to those posts. I think that, thank you. I see a couple super chats coming in. I appreciate that, you guys. But probably the main structure over here, I'll rebuild in steel, just to make it a little bit more durable, and to where it can put up to cattle, pushing on it and rubbing on it and stuff like that, because I think that's what really, that's what puts such a beating on that side of the barn. I mean, you can see where the roof is sagging because they've broken things off of it. And this summer, I will probably even get out there and do some of that, because a lot of that, I know I keep looking over at it. You guys can't see what I'm looking at, but you might be able to see a little bit, like right in there, that roof is sagging, because they've either broken that post off, or the bottom of the post is probably kind of rotted out a little bit, so it just like sinks a little bit every year, and until you know until you get what you have. Yeah, they're not bullet holes, although a couple of them might be. Actually, I used to bring my BB gun out here and try to shoot pigeons, so very likely a couple of those are BB holes. And actually, just this year, I was shooting at a rat, and I think I put a hole in the wall back there. And it's like when you're taking a shot like that, you shouldn't do it, because you're going to put a hole in the roof. But then it's like, well, there's 1,000 holes in the roof already, so what's the harm in one more? And if you could possibly eliminate a rat in the process, it feels worth it. So so yeah, they're not all bullet holes, but possibly some of them could be. Let's see. How do things today compare to the dream you had when you started full time? It's an interesting question. I think when I was younger, I guess my dream was more to have a giant ranch somewhere, thousands of acres, and run, hundreds, if not thousands of cows, whether or not that was ever attainable. It probably wasn't, but as a kid, that's what I always thought that I wanted. And as I got older, the possibility of actually being able to do that, at least here, it just didn't seem like it was probably going to happen. So what I've found is that where I'm at now, this actually, well, I wouldn't say this was like my dream growing up, or what I thought that I would have really liked to do, but I guess sometimes you don't really know what you want until you have it, because now I just feel like the scale of the operation, the size, the things that I'm able to do, it would be cool. I mean, I still have that thought of like having a giant ranch somewhere. Of course, I mean, I think anybody that does this thinks about wanting that, just because of, I don't know, just the freedom that comes with that, and just the seclusion, and all those things. But yeah, just the way things all worked out, I couldn't be happier with how this has all went. And even though it wasn't exactly what I thought I wanted, now that I'm at this point, I just can't really imagine liking what I do every day anymore. I mean, I was thinking about that this morning as I was getting ready. Just how excited I am to like get the day started, and pretty much every day is like that, which is really cool. I never thought, on a small operation like this, that I would be able to make a living, and obviously YouTube's a big part of that. So yeah, I feel like I hit the jackpot. I get to do what I love every day, whether it's in the shop or at the ranch, or whatever it is. And I'm also lucky in the fact, I think, that the work that goes into taking care of a place like this, I really do enjoy. You know, I'll often find myself doing things that I feel like most people would not like, whether it's working in the heat or the cold or the mud, or, the middle of the night, or whatever it is. But there's just something about doing all that stuff that I've always liked. So, I mean, I don't really feel like I work a day in my life, kind of like the old saying goes. Oh, we got another visitor. What are you doing? there's somebody else who's living her dream. uh, you could take her if she wants to go. Is she over there with you guys?
She's eating the cat food. Callie.
Oh, Callie's eating the cat food. What a surprise! What a surprise! Anyway, so that was kind of a long-winded answer to, yeah, this wasn't exactly what I set out to accomplish, but now that we're here, it's awesome, and I wouldn't change it. So, yeah, I'm very lucky. I feel very blessed to just, the way things all worked out. And you kind of think back about different forks in the road throughout your life that could have taken me different directions, or and just the fact that the way things all played out led me to here. It's just, I feel genuinely grateful for that every day, and I'm not just saying that. I actually consciously think that. I think every single day that I'm really lucky to end up where I am. So not that. So and that kind of leads me into another thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit in this live stream, just because I don't know if it makes me laugh or shake my head or what, but so if you remember, well, it was probably a couple months ago now, when I was testing the bale unroller for the first time, and I brought it over here to like roll the bale on the ground and do all that. And for some reason, I just had the idea to like get on top of the bale. And my thought was that I could kind of stand off to the side, and as it started to roll, I could just walk on top of the bale. And I thought it would just be like a funny thing to do, a little thrill, I guess. But because the bale was like a little bit lopsided, because I think it was one of the ones that was sitting on the ground, so it wasn't really balanced. So as I could start to walk on the top of it, it would start to roll a little bit, and you kind of get in a rhythm, and then the balance would change. So you would have to like, anyway, I ended up falling off the bale. Didn't hurt myself or anything. It was just a funny little thing. And I made a short out of that little clip. It was only a few seconds long. And then we also made, or I didn't do it, but Bree made a reel of that same clip. So if you saw the short, but you didn't see the reel on Instagram, it was exactly the same, except for she put different audio on the one that was on Instagram. And it said something about, I don't remember word for word what it was, but basically to the effect of that farmers are some of the happiest people, or are happier in general than people that, like lawyers or somebody that might make a lot of money, but, they just have like a job like that, right? So to our surprise, this video, for some reason, I mean, you never know what's going to take off, but this one did. And it's got over 1 million views now on Instagram, which is like by far and away the most viewed reel that we've had over there. And we realized that the reason that it took off is because people basically wanted to tell me that I'm not as happy as I think I am. And they kept quoting some, I don't know, this is like a PBS documentary, or I'm not sure where people were getting this information, or if they were just making it up or whatever, but they were saying, oh, and I think if I say this word that I get in trouble. So how am I going to say this so you guys know what I'm talking about? They were saying that farmers are the most likely people to commit S. If you self-harm, permanent self-harm, shall we say. See, like as I'm talking to you guys saying this, I just got an Instagram notification saying exactly what I've just told you, that people are saying, well, farmers are the most likely to commit S. And I don't know where people are getting this from, because it's not just like one person is saying it. It's, I mean, hundreds of comments, just one after the other of people saying that. And so I, being me, I looked it up because I said, I don't think this is true. But before I go and, dig my heels in and argue this, I am going, yes, unalived. That's a perfect way of saying it. So I looked it up, and there was like some statistics that kind of supported that, but they were saying, or they were lumping everybody with an ag related job into this category. So to me, that is farmers, that is farm labor, that is, I mean, everybody. Like, technically, what I used to do, when I worked for the county, I worked for the ag department. So that was a government job that, was really far detached from like actually farming. Um, but technically, that would be lumped into that group, in my opinion. So I don't know if there's any truth to it, but it seemed like a lot of people just really, really just wanted to tell me that I'm not as happy as I think I am. Or one person said that the happier you are, the less intelligent you are, or something like that. So it's just funny, or I was really surprised at the reaction, although I probably shouldn't be. But that, people, they really wanted to let me know that I was at a very high risk of unaliving myself, because I was a farmer, even though that little reel was just supposed to be just a dumb little thing to make you chuckle, but that's what it turned into. So if you follow us on Instagram, go browse through the comments on that reel. It's pretty entertaining. So yeah, yeah, kind of just reading what you guys are saying here, and yeah, it's statistics can pretty much say anything you want them to say. If you pull from the right group and manipulate the numbers in the way that you want, So I don't know how seriously we should really take any of those studies, but that's what it is. So I did see somebody comment there saying that I should do more shorts, and I try to do shorts, but they're almost always like an afterthought, or if I make a video and I just feel like for example, that walking on the bale, where I just think it's something that would make a good short, I'll do it. But I don't know what kind of shorts are like. What kind of shorts you guys want to see? Do you want to see just like dumb little funny stuff like that? Do you want to see answering a question here and there? You want just kind of like updates, like I could have filmed where I'm at with the bale and roller with the painting process and made a short out of that. So I don't know what you guys want to see. I'm sure you'll let me know if I ask. Yeah, so that was another thing. I saw somebody just put it there too, about taking risks because I'm out here by myself. And I am mostly very careful. I think I actually probably take, well, I don't think this. I know that I take more precautions than you guys are aware of because, some things are just not film worthy. And yeah, walking on that bale was maybe not the smartest thing, especially if I would have happened to fall off of it, towards the tractor. That could have gotten a little dicey, but there was enough room. I kind of had a plan of like what I would do if I started going that way and I couldn't save it. There was enough room for me to kind of fit in there, but yeah, usually I am pretty careful. Or if I'm doing, like the thing I always worry about is when I'm here working cows or doing something like that by myself. And when I'm doing stuff like that, I always let my wife, or she knows what I'm doing, and kind of when she should expect me. Excuse me, I need a drink. So I do take precaution, but there's also, that's a balancing act, isn't it? Because if we really wanted to be like really safe and really cautious, you'd never drive your car, you'd never do a lot of things. I mean, anything can happen. So I guess the thing that I try to do is just avoid risk when it's reasonable, and when it's unavoidable, just kind of let somebody know where I'm at, what I'm doing. Um, yeah, sometimes you do. You just have to do stuff. You're in the moment, things need to happen, and you're not thinking about safety when maybe you should be. Um, I mean, we've all had close calls. I'm sure I'm not alone in that. So, it's the way it is, and now having kids, I often think about, well, if your kids were doing what you're doing right now, how would you feel about that? And that I can talk myself out of doing some things that way, because it's one of those things. I think, oh, well, for myself, this is an okay risk to take. But then I think, well, for somebody that I care about, I don't think I want them doing this. So that's just, we can all sit here and preach it, but I think we're all guilty of it too, right? 17 degrees where you're at. Yeah, I'm feeling a little chilly here in the shade. I might move out in the sun here in a minute, but it's certainly not 17 degrees. It's definitely sweatshirt weather, I would say. If I actually got up and started doing something like right before this live stream, I was digging some post holes by hand, and I was ready to take my sweatshirt off for that. But yeah, I mean, the weather thing, right? Like, that's why people come to California. You can say a lot of things about California. That's certainly true. But you can't really say that the weather is bad. I mean, all in all, it's pretty decent, at least in this area, most times of the year. I mean, if you go to the east and get in the Sierra Nevadas, then it snows and it's cold and all that. But if you west in the coastal range over there is about like it is here. Although sometimes I think, the people that live where it snows, like, yes, it is cold, and I can't really talk about living in the cold because I've never done it, but it does seem kind of nice to have a time of year where, just everything is frozen and not muddy, because that's I guess the big downfall for here is that when we get into the winter time, when we do start getting rain, then it's just basically muddy all winter long. And, there's not really a whole lot you can do about that. You just kind of live with it. But, I think every place, has trade-offs. So for us, we have nice weather. We've certainly got other issues that we have to deal with, but the weather is nice. So so I just saw a question about bale grazing, and I think is what he was referring to. So right now, and in fact, I might walk out there and put this in a video, because where I've dropped bales out in the pasture for bale grazing, I'm getting a lot of grass sprouting. I guess it's kind of a different model here, because we do get cool season grasses that will grow through the winter, where like that's not the case for those of you that live where it's 17 degrees right now. You're probably not having grass growing, I imagine. But I do have grass growing where I drop those bales. Now, it's not the pasture grass. So what's planted in the pasture is a mix of Dallas grass and clover. I'm not sure what it actually is or what the ratios are of all that, but that's the two big things that are growing out there, in addition to the smut grass. So that stuff is completely dormant and shut down right now. But what is growing where I dropped the bales is the seeds that were in those bales. So it's going to be kind of interesting actually, because we'll see that stuff really start to take off in the spring. I mean, right now it's probably all, I don't know, 6 inches tall, let's say. Well, when it warms up, and I think next week it's supposed to start hitting like the mid to upper 60s. And when that happens, you're going to see this grass really start taking off. And especially those cool season grasses, that's what they wait for. They wait for a wet ground coupled with some sunshine and warmer temperatures. And once that happens, it'll start taking off. So my plan with all this is when that stuff really starts going, that should be about the time that I need to turn these cows out, because calves will be right around the corner. So I'm hoping that they can graze that stuff down so they kind of get that benefit of having that volunteer growth from the bale. And then the stalks or leftover hay that's left on the ground is going to be more of the, like, that will be more of the traditional bale graze that other people talk about. We'll be feeding microbes with that, adding organic matter, because the cattle have been standing there not only eating the bale when I set the bale out, but they'll also be attracted to those areas because there will be all of that new growth of the grass. So we should have a pretty heavy deposit of organic matter, if you follow my my train of thought there. So it'll be interesting to see. I guess the true test is when we get into summer and the warm season grasses take over out there, if there's like any sort of difference in those grasses. The theory being that there would be a difference because you've improved the soil there, and in turn the grass is able to grow better because of that. So that's kind of what we're waiting to see. I know Grandpa for years and years would bale graze, but not in the traditional sense. He would do it the way that I always used to do it, which was he would drop enough hay out there to satisfy the cows for one day. So like I even specifically remember him telling me one day when we were taking bales out, and you could see a little bit of hay on the ground from the day before, and he said, yeah, we need to cut them back a little bit. They're not cleaning it all up. Well, come to find out later, having that hay sitting on the ground actually is supposed to give you some benefits, as far as soil health, which I've heard enough people say it, enough people that I trust or that I think know what they're talking about, that I think that there's got to be something to it. So, yeah, I'll be very interested to see. And like all of these things that are not synthetic fertilizer, I think it takes a couple years of doing this, So what I'm kind of thinking, big picture, would be to like get on a rotation of bale grazing, because I don't do it enough to cover this entire ranch in 1 year. So I'm thinking what I will do is kind of like concentrate the bale grazing in certain spot 1 year, and then the next year move to a new spot, and so on, and just kind of get in a rotation. And when you get down to the end, then you just start over. So you're just sort of systematically doing this stuff to help the soil. And then, excuse me. And then I think I saw someone early in the live stream ask if I was going to do the Redmond treatment again with the, I think they gave me SR50, which is part salt and part clay. And I did that a couple years ago. And I thought that did help the grass. But again, that's something that I think I need to do year after year. And I've been talking with the guys at Redmond, and they've got a new, I guess not really a new product, but a new way of mixing it together, where they have that SR50, which is the salt and the clay, and then they add turkey manure to that, so you get a little bit of nitrogen boost as well. So I'm hoping that I get to try that this year, and I think having that that organic fertilizer in there should be, I mean, that you really should be able to see a difference with that. Let's see here. Sorry for me just sitting here being quiet. I'm just reading through these here. So the mobile chicken coop, actually, that is something that I did want to talk about as well. I was all gung ho on that, you know, and I do still plan to build it, but I don't know if I plan to bring it here or not. Um, just I don't know if I'm going to be poking a hornet's nest here, and you have to understand, I don't watch the news just because I just don't. I feel like I don't really, you know, without, let's see, how shall I say this? I don't watch the news. We'll leave it at that. But I do hear, you know, these things kind of in the background, and I don't know a lot about them, but I don't really try to research it, I guess. Maybe that, you know, I probably not representing myself very well. What I'm getting at is I keep hearing this talk about bird flu, and I know that that's transferable to cattle. So my concern with putting chickens out in the cow pasture is that if those chickens were to get bird flu, say from like a crow flying in or just some, you know, however it might happen, that having the chickens out there with the cattle would not be a good idea. So again, like everything, I feel like bird flu is politicized, and I'm not even sure which side is saying what about it, and I don't care. I don't want to know. The fact is that this time seems like an unreasonable risk. So I think that until that kind of blows over, that I'll probably not be putting chickens out here with the cows. But I do still want to rotate them around my house with our layers, because I feel like, you know, it's just nice to be able to keep those hens on green grass, but you can't really keep them in the same spot too long. Obviously, I don't want to let them run loose. Not that I think they're going to go anywhere, but they're just easy pickings for predators if you do that. So I think having the chicken house on wheels would be nice. You know, we can move them around at home, like around our fruit orchard and that sort of thing. And then in the future, I think bringing them out here to the cow pasture is something that that will happen. So again, I, I'm sure that, you know, the whole bird flu, I'm sure everybody's got an opinion on that. But yeah, we'll just kind of leave it there for now, I guess. But speaking of chickens, I actually do have something to update you guys on as far as that. And also speaking of bird flu, because this is kind of what motivated this. Every year, pretty more or less every year, we order chickens, you know, layers or meat birds. And this year, I was gonna order some more layer hens just because our egg supply through the summer is good. We have a surplus, and we're actually able to give a lot of eggs away. But in the wintertime, as you guys know, chickens slow down with their laying, and there are some days where we just weren't getting enough. We were just getting barely enough for ourselves, and the people that were accustomed to getting them from us weren't getting any. So we thought that, you know, what we really need to do is get more layer hens. Well, with all this talk about, you know, bird flu and all that, I was a little bit leery about ordering chicks from a hatchery because you'd have to think, on the one hand, biosecurity at a hatchery is going to be a huge deal, and I'm sure they don't take it lightly because that could be devastating for something like that to go through a hatchery. But then on the other hand, you think, well, that's where you got all these birds together, and you would think, boy, if something was going to happen, it would possibly be there. So my thought was, rather than order layer hens, at least, is that we could incubate our own eggs, because we've got layer hens, we've got roosters, we've got everything that we need to do it. So that's what we're doing right now. I haven't actually filmed any of this process yet, but I've got in total 3 incubators, 2 that hold 12 eggs, and then 1 that holds 41 eggs. And those are all full right now. So in about a week, they're a week apart. So the 2 smaller incubators, a total of 24 eggs, they should hatch in about a week. And then the bigger incubator with 41 eggs, that should be about 2 weeks. So we're hopefully going to have a ton of little chicks here pretty soon. And I'm trying to run the numbers, although they literally made a saying to not count your chicks before they're hatched. But I'm, doing that. And I'm thinking, well, out of, 65 eggs, if we get, let's say, 40 of them to hatch, and then half of those we'll assume will be roosters, half will be hens, we could in theory end up with 20 hens, which I think is about right. If I was to order some, I would probably order 25. So let's say if we can get 20 to 25 hens out of this hatch, we'll be doing about good. But then comes the issue of, like, we've got all these roosters now. What do we do with them? And these are not meat birds. They're chickens. Obviously, you can eat them. Chicken is chicken, but they're not going to gain as efficiently as a Cornish cross. They're not going to give you that big heart-shaped chicken breast that you're used to getting from a Cornish cross, and they're certainly